The story of Mary Austin and Jim Hutton is perhaps the most famous clash in rock and roll history, a complex tangle of loyalty, legacy, and a home that became a battleground. As we look back from May 2026, following Mary's recent decision to sell the legendary Garden Lodge for £30 million, the hidden truths of her conflict with Jim have resurfaced, offering a more human look at the tragedy that followed Freddie Mercury's passing. While the world saw a cold eviction, the reality was a perfect storm of legalities and emotional exhaustion. Let's dive into the architecture of the conflict that divided the two people Freddie loved most. 1. The battle for Garden Lodge. The primary conflict wasn't just personality, it was property. Freddie left the bulk of his estate, including his beloved Kensington sanctuary, Garden Lodge, to Mary. However, Jim Hutton claimed that Freddie had promised him he could stay in the house as long as he wanted. Shortly after Freddie's death, Mary requested that Jim move out. To the public, it looked like a vintage act of coldness. Recent insights suggest that the estate was a legal maze. Mary was the sole executor, and keeping multiple tenants in a high-value residence like Garden Lodge created massive tax and insurance liabilities. While Jim was forced to leave, it's often overlooked that Freddie didn't leave him empty-handed. He left Jim £500,000, roughly $1.2 million today, and, according to recent reports, had already helped Jim build a private home in Ireland to ensure he was never truly homeless. 2. The clash of status. In my opinion, the real, human tragedy was the competition for Freddie's soul. Jim was the partner of Freddie's final years, but Mary was the wife in Freddie's eyes, the woman he called the love of his life. Jim's book, Mercury and Me, painted Mary as someone who drastically changed her attitude after Freddie died, becoming distant and cold. Mary has rarely spoken, but her recent interviews in 2025 and 2026 suggest she was simply overwhelmed. She wasn't just grieving a friend, she was protecting a legacy from press intrusion and chaos. She reportedly limited access to the house after Jim allegedly invited strangers onto the property, a clash of boundaries that Mary felt she had to enforce to protect Freddie's peace. Two people, one impossible love. I honestly believe that there are no villains in this story. In my opinion, both Mary and Jim were human victims of an impossible situation. They both loved a man who was larger than life, and when that man was gone, they were left with a mass-produced media narrative that forced them into a rivalry. Mary Austin wasn't trying to be cruel. She was a woman trying to follow the strict, perfect instructions of a will that gave her a burden she never asked for. Jim Hutton wasn't being arrogant. He was a grieving man who felt his home was being taken away. It was a perfect illustration of how grief can turn allies into adversaries. Having seen Mary Austin finally move on from Garden Lodge this year and sell Freddie's most personal items, do you think she was right to protect the house so strictly for 30 years, even if it meant a conflict with Jim? Or should Freddie have made his will more perfect to prevent this tragedy between his two greatest loves? I'd love to hear your review of their relationship in the comments below.